And welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful Thursday evening. A little late start here, caught it by a minute and a half or so. Apologize for that. As the camera's also a little askew. Today was one of those perfect days that just doesn't want to go the way you want, but we are on the air nonetheless, and we'll talk about lots of things here in Division III basketball. It has been a very interesting week, to say the least. Lots going on, certainly. And certainly plenty more to talk about. But it's we had an amazing game in the Mid-Atlantic region last night between Messiah and Stevenson. DePaul goes out and makes a heck of a statement in the NCAC conference, or always, you know what I'm trying to say. Good thing we have Wooster's head coach coming up. Maybe he can make sense of DePaul absolutely smoking Wittenberg last night in men's basketball. Just unbelievable result there. There's other schools that are playing well. There's some schools that have tripped. The top 25 it stayed a little static on the men's and women's side. Nobody knew on the women's side, or I'm sorry, one team knew. Trinity, Texas re-entered the top 25 and Randolph-Macon exited. Not a lot of movement outside of that, though St. Thomas took a big hit. Remember, we talked to St. Thomas on last week at this time. They were about to play 3 games in 5 days. Well, that first game did not go so well for the for the Tommies on the ladies' women's basketball side, losing to St. Mary's in conference action. They now stay ahead of St. Mary's by a half a game because they're 9-1, but St. Mary's 8-1 in conference. 11-1 overall, St. Thomas 11-2 overall. St. Thomas did respond with a win over Bethel and Gustavus Adolphus, but that certainly was going to be a tough stretch, and we kind of knew that going in, but I think I expected them maybe to beat St. Mary's and then maybe stumble against Bethel. Men on the other side, by the way, both had to travel to St. Mary's and Bethel and then home against Gustavus Adolphus. The men on the St. Thomas side did okay in that crazy schedule, all due to the fact that they had a makeup game with Bethel due to weather. Minus 20 degrees weather was the reason. More craziness in the CCIW as well, especially on the men's side. Illinois Wesleyan has responded from losing to Augustana. No surprise, really, there for the most part. Conference is Augustana on top, then Illinois Wesleyan. Carthage, by the way, now 10-5 in a 4-way tie with Wheaton, Illinois, and Augustana for the top of this conference. Everybody else is 1-2, 1-3, 1-3, and 0-3. Saw it earlier. Bob Quillman, our friend out of the CCIW, pointing out that of the bottom 4 and the top 4, nobody in the bottom 4 has beaten the top 4. So Elmhurst, North Central Illinois, Milliken, and North Park have not beaten Augustana, Illinois Wesleyan, Carthage, and Wheaton. Augustana's loss is to Wheaton. Illinois Wesleyan's loss is to Augustana. Carthage's loss is to Augustana. And they then beat Wheaton last night. So it's a circle. So Augustana, who lost to Wheaton, Wheaton lost to Carthage, Carthage lost to Augustana, Illinois Wesleyan lost to Wheaton. I think I've got that straight. So 3-1 there in the CCIW on the men's side. Wacky, to say the least. WPI still winning. Stevens Point still winning. Cabrini still winning in the men's top 25. It's just unbelievable, to say the least. It's just wild and wacky stuff. If you have any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also Facebook.com/Hoopsville with us or Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. It might be helpful if I actually tweeted out that we're on the air. So let's do that as we're speaking. Again, using the hashtag Hoopsville is on the air this Thursday night. Tune in to talk D3H here, and we'll put in the link. By the way, keep an eye on D3Hoops.com in the coming day or so. May have a bit of a surprise for you. You may have seen the ways of D3 football. D3 Hoops is on the verge, and I don't know the exact launch of it, but we should be getting a new site relatively soon. We'll see what happens there. Let's see here. Just got to we tweet this out to everybody. Forgive me. I'm a bit behind schedule today, is the long and the short of it. Mainly due to technical problems that we had all day. We're on the verge of trying to buy a new computer to replace the one you are currently witnessing us use. And as a result, it got us way behind schedule. We were going to have an interview that was pre-taped. It didn't like to do that. So we're battling that issue as well. So, more of the same as it were here. So, anyway, again, Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. Please interact with us. You can also ask questions of our guests. Certainly want to hear from you as well. But it gets me to my point about the technical problems. If you are not familiar, on Sunday we launched a brand new fundraising campaign, and the only fundraising campaign we've ever had. We launched one for Hoopsville. The reason we are with our program. And so we are looking for your assistance if you could. A lot of people have said that they want to come to, help us out and help us improve the show. And certainly we want to improve the show. The video has been choppy recently. The audio might be choppy for you, even though from my point of view, I think the audio is fine, but I could be wrong. I do know when we recorded an interview earlier today, the audio and the video were choppy as heck. And so we couldn't use it. We're going to actually have that live interview later anyway. We want to improve the visual content. We want to improve what we may be able to do off air. We want to travel more with this show. We've gotten an invitation for later this year. We're going to look into whether we can pull that off. There are lots of things we would like to do for the show. And honestly, me personally, as much as a lot of this has come out of my own pocket, I can't take the show any further. And I've been told by coaches and fans and viewers and many others that they would like to contribute to the show. So we are falling, or not falling, but we are coming to you, as it were, with our fundraising campaign, asking you if you would contribute to Hoopsville. Of course, we would be incredibly honored if you could do so. We've been tweeting out the link on Twitter and on Facebook, so you can find a link for our fundraising campaign. In the first 5 days of the campaign, we have raised just under 20% of our goal, and if we meet our goal, we can still raise money past that goal. It doesn't mean when we hit our goal we're done. We're done on February 9th. That is the end date for our campaign. So about 3.5 weeks away. That is the end date for our campaign. We would like to hit our goal for varying reasons. One, there's a lot we can do with that money. Second of all, the fees that we are charged by the fundraising website are cut in half. So we get to keep more of our money, or your money, I should say. Also, if we go past that goal, we have lots of ideas. When we travel with the show Hoopsville, there's a lot of gear involved with that. And sometimes we have to kind of pillage from the studio gear to make that work. And so we're looking to fix that, as it were, and have a separate set of gear ready to go for Hoopsville, so we don't have to kind of hem and haw. And sometimes when we come back from a trip, something doesn't work. We go on a trip, something doesn't work because we didn't grab the right stuff. So that's kind of what we're thinking with this. If we raise a lot of money, we will bank a lot if we don't use it right away. Again, we want to travel with the show more, and a lot of this will then transpire into also what we do with broadcasting across other entities as well. But we are asking you, it's a very humbling thing for me to do, to ask for help, so I am asking for help. We got an initial reaction in the first couple of days that was pretty stupendous, as it were. Today, a little bit quieter. Hasn't had as much, but we didn't push it as much. We're hoping you will help us out. Now, if you can't contribute, and please, we understand if you cannot contribute, at least pass it on to people you may know who may be interested, whether it's retweeting, Facebooking, emailing, whatever you may do to pass on the campaign. We would certainly be honored. By the way, there are perks involved if you so choose to choose a perk. If you donate $10 and choose the tip-off perk, your name will be featured on a special contributors page that we will have on our website. If you contribute $25 and choose the perk, you'll not only get that, but you'll also get a public thank you right here on Hoopsville. We will publicly thank everybody who has contributed at least $25. If you choose 50, which is our featured perk, we have 15 of these available. You will get all of we discussed, and we will send you a Hoopsville t-shirt. We're in the process of getting those ordered and ready to go. So by the end of the basketball season, you will have a Hoopsville t-shirt. Also, if you have a Twitter account that you would like us to follow you at, we will follow you there as well. The $100 level is all of that we have discussed, plus I will wear your school's alma mater, your t-shirt, and interview a guest or coach of your choosing. So far, we've had a few of these who have chosen this perk level, and we've got some great interview ideas. We will be working on those in a minute. I'll explain exactly how. And then there is also a $250 level if you so choose to contribute that much or choose that perk. That perk will get you everything I discussed, plus you will get a chance to be on this show to talk about your team and why you love Division III basketball so much. Again, you can find a link on our show page right above the window here on the D3 Hoops, the Hoopsville show page. Also on Twitter, on Facebook, we have links. We will continue to send those out as well. So please consider it, or at least pass it on. Just passing it on will mean a lot to us. Since I'm sure there may be some out there who are not aware of the campaign, and so anything you can do. By the way, you can also make a contribution, and it is anonymous. You can make a contribution that doesn't take up one of the perks if you don't so choose, and some people have already done so. Hey, coming up tonight, we have lots to talk about. We'll talk to the number 2 team in the country, the Wooster Fighting Scots in men's basketball. We'll talk to Coach Moore there, Steve Moore, about his team and how they're doing. We'll jump down in the South region. Oglethorpe. Not only do they have one of my favorite mascots, but the team, certainly impressed me this past week, winning 2 double overtime games to continue going well. We will talk to Coach Phillip Ponder. We'll head out west, switch to women's basketball, talk to Claremont-Mudd-Scripps' Kristen Dowling, talk to her about her Athenas and how they are doing, and especially what it's like to coach in the conference that she used to play in and had success. We'll jump back into the Mid-Atlantic region. Dickinson's men's basketball coach Alan Seretti will join us. Dickinson having a terrific season, not quite ranked yet. I thought they might be ranked this week. I at least put them in my top 25, but there's a lot of Mid-Atlantic teams to talk about. We'll talk to him about the Centennial Conference, which seems to be down, but how the Mid-Atlantic region seems to be up. And then Vassar will jump into the East region. BJ Dunn will join us to talk about his team. First year in as a head coach at Vassar, and the team is off to a really good start. So that's all coming up here on Hoopsville. At D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. And of course, you can also join us via email, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, right? And I can also tell you, we will probably have time throughout the show and especially at the end to answer your questions. So please send us your questions. It is a lot easier to answer questions and interact with you than just to talk by myself with a video monitor here, a little camera and all that. So you're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll return with the number 2 team in the country. We'll talk to the Fighting Scots of Wooster coming up on Hoopsville.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to students at identified as a likely leader.
In the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday night. I was talking about our fundraising campaign before the break. One thing I forgot to mention was that we will be doing a supersized show coming up 2 weeks from today, Thursday, January 30th, as our way of kind of helping the campaign, but also as a way of thanking you for contributing or being a fan of Hoopsville. We will do a 12-hour show, I kid you not, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Thursday, January 30th. We will have a chance to talk to a number of people around Division III, administrators, coaches, and others, especially anybody who has contributed up to that point and we're able to get the certain perks available. We may have their guests on as well. So that is 2 weeks from today, 10 a.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern. We encourage you to, if you're at work, to tune us in. If you're a coach and you're at home or at work, tune us in. We certainly would hope that a lot of you will tune in for what should be a crazy show, yes, but a fun show as well. Up to Great Lakes region, get right to our first guest. And, when you talk about Hoopsville and you talk about the coaches we have on the air, it seems like almost every year we eventually talk to the men's basketball coach at Wooster, and Coach Steve Moore joining us here on the show. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Thank you, Dave. Good to be talking with you.
Absolutely. I certainly appreciate you taking the time to join us. The team's off to another strong start, 13-1 on the season, the one loss in non-Division III action. Of course, the conference is a whole other conversation. We'll get to that in a minute, but you're off to a strong start there as well. Of course, ranked number 2 in the country. I know that to some coaches at this time of year doesn't mean as much, but how do you make out the season that is so far right now for the Fighting Scots?
Well, I think, Dave, the first half of the season has been a good one, good start to the season. Going into the season, we really wanted to improve in the area of taking care of the basketball. Last year, even though we won a lot of games, we actually had a negative assist-to-turnover ratio, and so a big goal of ours was to improve in that area, and we have. We're on the positive side this year. We've cut down our turnovers. Some of our players are passing the ball much better, getting more assists, and that's helped our team.
The team really hasn't really, how do I want to put this? You've played well, you've had some close games, but you guys persevere. You got going in conference play against Ohio Wesleyan. Talk about a great start, one of the top 3 teams in the conference, and you win that one. Of course, that was at Ohio Wesleyan. It was a thriller of a game. You then roll over DePaul, and then you beat Wabash. Then you go on a holiday break and play a couple games. Then you come back and you kind of get back into the scope of things. And, of course, last game you win over Hiram 94-71. You had beaten Kenyon earlier very easily. You beat Denison easily. What's the make of this team? I see some tough games where I expect tough games, and I'm seeing the blowouts where I expect to see blowouts. Does this mean that you guys are really playing as well as to be expected? I mean, as from a coach, I'm sure you can nitpick it all you can out of that.
Well, Dave, you mentioned some of those close victories. The Ohio Wesleyan game, that was a heck of a battle. Coach DeWitt has another really good team. And then we had some other non-league games that we won in the close games. Baldwin Wallace, who they're a very talented team, and Marietta over in the Ohio Athletic Conference on the road. I think we won some of those games by making some shots at the end of the game. We had some guys really come through in the clutch. In fact, early in the season, we were probably winning more based on our offense than our defense, even though, we take a lot of pride in our defense. But, we talked about it and said, guys, you're making shots, but we've got to stop people too. And that's improved here lately. So we're hoping that we can, put it together. We still have a ways to go. There are certain areas that we have to improve upon, but, I think we're making progress.
Well, you're beating your opponents by about 15 points a game on average, certainly playing extremely good basketball. When everybody talks about this team, Xavier Brown certainly is one of the first ones that gets mentioned. He's leading the team at 14.5 points a game. He's just handing out 2.5 assists a game. He's also hauling in about 4 rebounds a game. But there's plenty of other guys. 2 seniors, Doug Thorpe and Kenny DeBar, both scoring 9 or more points a game. And you're getting contributions from others, like even a freshman in Dan Fanley, 9 points a game as well. It seems like you guys have your weapon in Xavier Brown, but you've got other spots you can go to that are going to make teams kind of pick your poison, as it were.
Yes, I think we have good balance. Xavier certainly had a fine year here in his junior season. He's improved in a lot of areas. He's one of the players that I was talking about that, we were really looking for him to increase his assist total, and he has that. Xavier's passing has improved. He's ever since his freshman year, he's been able to beat his man, break the defense down, and now when he does that, he's making good decisions and getting more assists, and that's helping our team. But our other starting guard, Doug Thorpe, is a lot the same way. Doug can create his own shot, but we wanted Doug to improve his assist ability, and he's done that. And the other guys you mentioned have played well for us, and we've had a real pleasant surprise in Scott Purcell, the third senior, having a good senior year. He was really he's had some tough luck with injuries his first 3 years and hasn't gotten a lot of playing time, but as a senior, he's really come on strong and played well for us.
When you look at the squad and how battle-tested, I mean, this is a team that, last year, 24-6, the year before that, 26-5, 31-3. I mean, it's rare to see you guys less than 23 wins, to be completely honest. But you guys have been battle-tested. You've been tested in the NCAC as well every year, though you never come out of the conference unblemished. When you looked at this season, you looked at the squad you had, I am assuming 13-1 was probably what you expected. What were your overall expectations for the season, though?
Well, I guess I'm not sure we really expected 13-1. We looked at the schedule coming in, and a lot of those tough non-conference games. So we feel very fortunate to have as many wins as we do at this point. But as far as the conference regular season goes, there's a long way to go, and we have to play some tough games on the road, which, including this coming Saturday at Wittenberg, which will be a really tough game. There's no doubt about it, and a lot of other ones. So a long way to go. We just hope that we can, stay healthy and keep improving as a team.
You kind of made the segue for me very nicely, Coach. Wittenberg is ahead for you guys, of course, on the road. Wittenberg just got thumped last night again by DePauw in a surprising score, 72-46, that game at DePauw. Clearly, the Wooster-Wittenberg game as a rivalry, it doesn't matter the records. You guys are going to go toe for toe. You guys could be number 1 and undefeated, and Wittenberg couldn't have won a game, and it's still going to be close. When you look at this Wittenberg squad, this Tiger unit, what do you guys expect, and what are you looking for in terms of what do you need to do to get out of that place with a win?
Well, we know we'll have to play well, Dave. Their loss last night will probably make it even harder for us because they'll be so highly motivated and ready to bounce back. And, we all know in our league how tough it is to play against DePauw. The last 2 years previous to this, we've lost at DePauw. They're very good, and that's a tough road game. But Wittenberg's playing very well. They're a much better team than they were last year because they return all their starters, and so they have all that experience. They've added some really good freshmen, so they have better depth than they had last year. And so they're really a good basketball team and always well coached. It's never easy to score against them, and they have a post player, Scott Mason, who's just a really tough in the low post, very strong, and he's a senior now, and he knows how to play, he knows how to score and rebound, and when you surround Mason with some really good shooters, it makes them tough to defend.
You talk about, obviously knowing DePauw is a good team, and you talk about knowing Wittenberg's going to be a battle anyway. But how much does a game like last night, when you see that final score and you see the stats, and you've probably seen the video, how much does that change your mentality a little bit? How much does that change your preparation, not only for Wittenberg, but when you will get the rematch against DePauw?
Well, it doesn't change anything for the game against Wittenberg. Like I said, we know it's probably going to make it even tougher. They'll be extremely motivated, and that game last night, it was a lot closer than the score indicated. I think at the end, DePaul pulled away. Wittenberg probably just missed some shots there at the end, but they're both good teams. We have to play Wittenberg twice yet, and still have to go to DePaul. So we know we're going to have some battles along the way. And but as far as the game Saturday, we prepare hard for them. They prepare hard for us. We always know each other really well, and it comes down to execution and just battling. And rebounding will be a big key. They're a good rebounding team, and Mason's really tough to keep him off the boards.
Got to ask you about the schedule just a little bit. You started off with Oberman and Baldwin-Wallace. You played Wheaton of Illinois, as did Wittenberg. You played Marietta, who's having a good season and win by 3. Obviously, conference play had you Ohio Wesleyan and DePaul. But then you headed out to Arizona, played a couple D2 NIA teams, but they're NAIA, I know. What was the mentality in going out to Arizona, playing those teams, as opposed to maybe picking up a couple more D3s or challenge you guys selves in another way? Don't get me wrong. I know Arizona Christian at the time was still undefeated. I know those are tough opponents. But what was the idea of going out to Arizona and playing them versus other options that I know are aplenty for a lot of coaches?
Well, we like to travel to different places, Dave. We like to have our players, experience different states, different cultures, and we just identified Phoenix as a place where it would be great to travel to. And unfortunately, there are no Division III schools out there. When we scheduled the tournament with Arizona Christian, we were hoping that they would be able to get a Division III team in there in that tournament to play us, but that didn't happen. So we were locked into the tournament. We did actually play some very good competition. Arizona Christian at the time was ranked 6th in NAIA Division I, and Westmont, I think, won that league last year that Arizona Christian's in. So it was good competition. Certainly, not Division III teams, but really as talented as anybody will play all year. So I think it was good for us.
No, it certainly looked good, and only losing to Arizona Christian by 2 points, pretty solid, as you pointed out. At the time, they were undefeated. So pretty good. Of course, Wittenberg, Allegheny, then DePaul and Ohio Wesleyan. 3 of the next 4 are going to be anything but a cakewalk. And, of course, you don't want to overlook Allegheny either. Coach, appreciate you taking the time to join us. Certainly looking forward to seeing what the Scots do down the road, and hopefully we'll be talking to you in March as well. As always, as you probably remember, I give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, just thank you so much, Dave, for having us on. It's been great talking with you, and thanks for everything you do for Division III basketball. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate the kind words. Good luck the rest of the way, and we'll look forward to watching this NCAC battle this year.
Thank you, Dave.
Take care.
Bye.
Coach Steve Moore joining us here on Hoopsville. Always fun to talk to him and talk about Wooster Scots basketball. Again, the team is 13-1 overall right now, ranked number 2 in the country. Conference record 7-0, thanks to wins again against Ohio Wesleyan, DePaul, Wabash, Denison, Kenyon, Hiram. But they got a big game coming up on Saturday at Wittenberg. They're then home against Allegheny, at DePaul. Remember, that's where Wittenberg just lost by a number of points. And then home against Ohio Wesleyan. That will round out their January. Certainly, maybe with their toughest opponents there, though they've still got Wittenberg back in February to come as well. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to jump to the south and to Georgia and talk SCAC basketball and talk how well Oglethorpe's playing right now with Coach Phillip Ponder. The number 24 team in the country is certainly playing well. We want to hear from them and see how they're doing. I should say, by the way, they're in the SAA. I forgot. One of those many schools that split off from the SCAC. Imagine the SCAC, everybody. East and West. The East basically broke off to create the SAA. The West stayed in the SCAC. We will talk to Coach Phillip Ponder about his Stormy Petrels and how their team is 13-1 and 3-0 in conference play when we come back. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Don't forget, you can join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Also, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. And don't forget, you can join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We'll be back with more Hoopsville right after this.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday night as we are off and running here on January 16th. Reminder, follow us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Also, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Should also mention that we will, let's see, what's the word I'm looking for here? We'll have a super show coming up in 2 weeks. We'll talk more about that. We have our Hoopsville fundraising campaign for the first time ever. We have that up and running. You can go to Twitter and Facebook or email us for more information. We will send more tweets out in the coming days. Obviously, the campaign goes all the way through February 9th. Let's go right to the Hoopsville hotline and keep this show moving, as it were. We're going to jump down to the South region, head to Georgia, and joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is Coach Phillip Ponder from the number 24 Oglethorpe Stormy Petrels. Team is 13-1. We're all 3-0 in conference action. They are also our School of the Week. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thanks, Dave, for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time to join us. This is a team that last year, 17-10, certainly had a good year, 11-14 year before that. But that's that team that's, again, a 17-10 type team or right around 500. You guys are off to a terrific start at 13-1, including 2 incredible games last week that went double overtime. Apparently, regulation for you guys is completely overrated. What's been the reaction on campus? What's been the reaction within the team?
On campus, I think there is starting to be a little bit of a buzz on campus. With social media and everything, Facebook and Twitter, we're getting a lot of messages there and retweets and stuff like that. And we had a really good crowd the last game before finals against Emory, and that was just another crazy Oglethorpe Emory game. 5 of the last 8 games have gone to overtime or double overtime, and this one went into overtime as well. And we were lucky enough to pull out a win in that game. And the crowd was great in that game, and there was some buzz on campus the next day. And it's now that school has started back, there's a little bit of a buzz about our upcoming game on Saturday night as well. And as far as the guys, they're handling it well. They're excited. They pumped up to be in the others receiving votes and then finally crack the top 25 this week. So, we're excited and having a great time.
This is a conference in its quick 2 years has certainly gotten plenty of attention. Center making the NCAA tournament last year, Birmingham Southern, who's struggling a little bit right now, has certainly made waves over the years, even back when they were in the SCAC as well. Stormy Petrels kind of rising to the top here. You mentioned the win over Emory in double overtime. You guys certainly have stayed a little bit more local, not surprisingly, but you've handled your opponents. I think that's what's big to everybody is you guys have really handled your opponents. What's been the mentality with the team going into this season?
Well, we graduated 5 seniors that all 5 of our top 9 guys from last year. So I think a lot of people, didn't really expect much from us, but at the same time, we had higher expectations than I think everybody else. We knew we had some talent returning. We knew we had a good recruiting class, and this has just been a very coachable team, a very hard-working team, no attitudes. We've kept positive vibe the whole season. You know, obviously winning helps with that, but it's just been a very coachable team, a hard-working team, and it's just been amazing. To me, we've played so many close games. We've got 8 games decided by 6 points or less, and we've found a way to win all 8 of them. 7 come from behind wins. 5 of our games went to overtime. We won all 5 of those, so it's kind of been a little bit of a magical ride. We're just, when we need a shot, we make it. When we need a stop, we get it. So it's been great.
Yeah, it certainly has been fun to watch the team. This is a conference that certainly, while new, you guys aren't unfamiliar with in any stretch of the imagination. You know, again, we mentioned the Centers and the Birmingham Southerns. You know these teams mainly because a lot of them came from the SCAC in the first place. How do you see this conference shaping up? You guys are 3-0, having won against Hendricks and Rhodes, and as well as Barry, by the way, back in the beginning of December. You have Barry ahead of you. You're going to have Center and Swanee ahead of you as well. Is this a top-heavy conference right now with a good teams in the middle, or is this a deep conference? How do you see this in your eyes?
I think, you know, if you look at the conference this year compared to, you know, some of the years in the old SCAC, I don't know if we have like a top 10 team, top 5. You know, we had Center got up ranked number 2 in the nation at one point. We had Trinity finish the season ranked number 3 one year. Millsaps finished number 6 one year. I don't know if we have anybody quite at that level. But I'm telling you, there is no easy game in our conference now. 'Cause, I mean, Barry came in last in the conference last year.
Yeah.
We beat them by 1 point at their place. You know, they're much better this year. Hendricks is much improved this year. We pulled out a double overtime win at their place. There's just no easy games in the conference. You know, on the road in particular, but you can't take anybody lightly. If you don't bring your A game, you can get beat on any given night.
Let's talk about the team just a little bit as we talk to Coach Phillip Ponder here of the Oglethorpe men's basketball team. Most of the team coming from Georgia and Florida. No surprise there. One from Alabama as well. By the way, randomly, you have a Brazilian on the team.
He's via Florida, though.
Yeah,
so.
Well, I saw the school. I figured he might have been. You're led by a senior in Tyler Corson, 17.5 points a game, hauling down 4.5 rebounds. Drew Patrick, a sophomore guard, 14-plus points a game. 6.9 rebounds from the guard. Victor Rolfs, the sophomore, I believe that is our Brazilian, 11 points a game, 6.3 rebounds a game. You're getting 9-plus points out of 2 more guys, nearly 8 points out of another. You've got a leader in Corson in the point category, but you got a lot of guys that looks like are contributing.
Yeah, we do. I really don't think we have what I would consider a superstar. You know, we've had a kid named Russ Churchwell, a kid named Todd Ward that were just super talented players. I don't think we have anybody and one individual at that level, but we've just got a lot of good players and a lot of guys that fill a role and they fit well together and they work hard. And you know, Tyler's having a great senior season. He's one of the hardest workers I've had, and he didn't play at all as a freshman. Played 9 minutes a game as a sophomore. Was our sixth last year, and you know he's starting and our leading scorer this year. So it's been a great progression. But you know it's just a good group that fits well together, and guys come in and play their roles off the bench. Our first 4 guys off the bench are all freshmen, and they come in and they just play a role, and it's just a team that really fits well together.
I'm talking to Coach Phillip Ponder here of Oglethorpe men's basketball team, who are having a terrific season. Ranked 24, best start in modern school history, which will get us to a little bit more fun time, if you don't mind, Coach.
Okay.
You are our pick of our School of the Week, and as a result, we ask you 5 trivia questions. They range in questions about your program to the athletics department to the school. Sometimes we have some fun as to where you're ranked in all the special rankings from U.S. News and World Report. But I will tell you right now, we did not include that
good.
this time around, mainly because I didn't have the time to do that kind of research. If you don't mind, let's have some fun with this. I don't know what may be considered difficult or not. These are going to kind of be thrown out there a little bit. So let's just have some fun with it. Why don't we?
All right, let's go.
First and foremost, athletics at Oglethorpe was started in 1916. With what sport?
Ooh, I'm going to guess football.
It's a good guess. That was one of the first two, but the first one was actually basketball.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yep. Sorry about that.
0 for 1.
Hey, what is the name of the race held on Oglethorpe Day, featuring students running a 270-yard run around the academic quad before the Lupton Hall bell tower finishes its noon chime?
I've got this one. Petrels of Fire.
Yes,
Petrels of Fire.
Yes, based on Trinity College's Great Court Run, which is featured in the Chariots of Fire. That's actually cool. I'd love to see that done. So I'm guessing they got to finish the 270 yards
before the last
chime.
Bell chimes. Right.
Whew, that doesn't sound.
One guy has made it ever, and it's always freezing cold out there because it's in like January.
I was going to say it's not in a great time of year. Of course, it's Georgia. Freezing cold to you guys is very different than some others.
It's all relative.
Yeah, right. But only one guy's ever done it.
As far as I know, only one guy has made it.
Wow. I assume your team's not allowed to do it.
They are not allowed to do it.
All right, the rest have to do with your mascot. I love your mascot. I'm not the only one. And the writer for ESPN, or a reporter for ESPN, named him the second best mascot in all of college sports. The number one was the Banana Slugs out at UC Davis, I believe. Oh, no, Santa Barbara. Santa Cruz. One of those. Yeah. It's out there in California. But I love Petey the Stormy Petrel. Or Petrel, I should say. And so I've got a couple questions about him. I suspect you'll do well, but you never know. By the way, one of Petey's favorite foods is slugs, especially banana slugs, ironically enough. All right, first and foremost, he's got two nicknames. What are they?
Ooh, wow. Petey's one of them.
Technically, it's Pete, but I'll give it to you.
I have no idea. I'm sorry.
BBOC. Big Bird on Campus.
I see.
It makes some sense. Let's see. What do I want to... Okay. The seabird was chosen as the mascot by the founder of the school, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, the president in 1915 to 1943. So right around the time athletics was discovered by Dr. Thornwell Jacobs.
Right.
Why did he choose the Stormy Petrel?
There are some varying stories, but basically when James Oglethorpe, who is our namesake, came over from England, he landed in Savannah, was where he touched down off of the coast of Georgia, and the way that he found his way to the coast was he followed the Stormy Petrel, which can fly through storms, and so he followed the Stormy Petrel, which can fly through storms that no other birds can fly through to land, is one version. The other version is he used to light them and use them as torches, but we don't like that story as much.
Interesting. I'm going to go with what's on your website. I'm not denying the story, but the website story says he was inspired by a courage of small, gutsy bird as it dove in and out of the crashing ocean waves as he crossed the Atlantic in 1732. But I like your version better, especially the last one we won't talk about.
Okay.
And then finally, it is said that the Stormy Petrel is the inspiration of Oglethorpe's motto. I'm not even going to, I'm going to say, Nascit Cedere.
Right.
I'm not Latin. But what does that translate to?
Give or take a word or two, it means he who does not give up.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which would be a perfect metaphor for this team because we've got 7 come from behind wins.
Wow,
so.
two interviews in a row have figured out my transition going there. He does not know how to give up, and that was going to be my transition. Your team certainly seems like one of those where these double overtime wins, you guys have been gutting out some victories, and so I'll ask you this as we wrap up. How important are those kinds of games, even if it is against a Hendrick squad that's 7-7 or a Rhodes squad that's 9-5? How do those kind of games, you think, transpire into late January and February?
Well, I mean, I think it's huge just because when you're in that situation again, the last few times, like at Rhodes on Sunday, when the first overtime started, right before the first overtime started, was in the huddle and was like, all right, guys, we've been here before. We've been here before, and we won all 4 times. And then we went to double overtime, and I was like, all right, guys, we've been here before. We were just here 36 hours ago, and we won. Let's do it again. So I think the guys have confidence in those pressure situations. It's put us in a lot of pressure situations, and we've been able to come through. So I think we have more confidence. And we just know that no deficits, when we do have one, is insurmountable, and the guys just don't quit.
You also should mention you guys got that win over Steve back a few.
They're a good squad.
Yeah, well, they just beat Messiah in a thriller double overtime game, ironically enough, or coincidentally enough. Of course, that's another big win you guys have in your hat. That came right down to the wire. Hey, Coach.
Yeah, that was a 1-point game there.
Yeah, so. I know. Well, 1-point victory in that one, and of course some other tough games as well. Of course, you mentioned the Emory game that went into overtime too. Listen, I would just suggest playing 40 minutes of basketball. That's all I'm going to say.
I would be quite all right with that for the rest of the season, but as long as it goes our way.
Very good. Well, Coach, thanks for joining us on the show. As always, I give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Just probably the same thing almost everybody always says. Thanks to you for doing the Hoopsville. Thanks to Pat for D3 Hoops. I mean, it's just a great outlet. This is something NAIA 2 doesn't have. It's one of the things that makes Division III special. So thank you to you guys for doing all of this.
Well, thank you, Coach, for the kind words. We certainly enjoy having you on the show. It makes doing the show a little bit easier when our guests can come on. Thank you so much, especially it was a bit last minute today. Good luck the rest of the way. We'll talk to you soon and look forward to seeing how you do in the SAA.
All right, thanks a lot.
Take care.
Bye.
Coach Phillip Ponder joining us here on Hoopsville. Number 24 ranked team in the country, 13-1. They've got some good wins in there. Emory, for example, and of course Stevenson and others. Watch out for the Stormy Petrels. They could be a little bit more dangerous than many people may be giving them credit for. We're going to when we come back, we're going to jump out to the West Coast, jump into some women's basketball as well, and talk Athenas. We're going to go from Stormy Petrels to Athenas. We'll explain a little bit more when we come back with our guests from Claremont-Mudd-Scripps. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Back after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, on a Thursday evening. Hope you're enjoying your evening. We certainly appreciate you taking the time to join us on Hoopsville this evening. It is January 16th. We certainly have a lot to cover between now and the end of February, really beginning of March. March 2nd is the last day of the Division III regular basketball season, and we will be talking plenty more about that. As we get closer to February, we'll be talking more about regional rankings when they come out and selection processes, etc. We'll even maybe get a preview of a lot of that, which we don't normally do with committee chairs. You'll remember we interviewed both committee chairs at the beginning of the season. We have that super show coming up in 2 weeks, a 12-hour marathon show from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll hopefully talk to those committee chairs on those shows. I say that because we haven't actually sent the invite out, but we got 12 hours to cover. I'm hoping the two of them will help us out. out Steve Ulrich on the men's side and Dave Martin on the women's side. But we will see. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Don't forget our email address, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. On Twitter and Facebook especially, you can learn a lot more about what's going on with our fundraising campaign. We certainly hope you'll consider contributing to that, or at least passing it on to those who may be interested as well. Let's jump out to the West Coast. We're going to jump into some women's basketball here and talk to one of the teams certainly making headlines in Division III, and that's the 12-2 Claremont-Mudd-Scripps women's basketball team. And joining us on Hoopsville on the hotline is Kristen Dowling, their head coach. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Hey, Dave, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
We should tell everybody this is your second go-around. You and I did chat earlier in a pre-recorded segment that thanks to our technological difficulties, thus the reason for our fundraising campaign, was unable to get on the air. So I appreciate you taking the time to join us here quickly before you have a game this evening. So you got a second go-around, which is rather rare. Of course, you got your game coming up against Cal Lutheran. Team is 12-2 overall, though, 4-1 in the SCIAC. You got to be thrilled with how this team is playing, considering last year in your first year they were 9-16, 5-11.
Yeah, we're really excited. We got a great group. We have 6 seniors who are leading the way and 9 talented freshmen, and we still have a long way to go, and it's early. And we just want to keep getting better every day, but we're definitely glad with the way we're moving.
This is you're playing in a conference that's certainly somewhat challenging, but you went and challenged yourselves outside of that just a little bit as well. You went and played Pacific Lutheran and Puget Sound. That was a big game up there in the Northwest. You had to take on some non-Division threes, which isn't all that surprising. When you're based out in the island, as it were, of California. How do you think, we should mention, by the way, Hamlin and Grinnell were teams you played at Caltech as well. How do you think the team has played? How do you think that competition has prepared you for where we are on January 16th?
I think it's been great. You know, the preseason for us is all about getting better. The record doesn't really matter. It's just about getting better, and I feel like we've done that. And the first part was just learning how to win, because we had a team that hadn't won a lot. So getting confidence, learning how to win, and then going on the road and beating, always winning on the road is a good thing. And then we also beat a very good Santa Cruz team on the road as well. So, it's definitely just building. We're just trying to get better each day, and we feel like the preseason, is preparing us for our league.
Let's talk about the team first before we jump into the league. This is a team that, doesn't have a ton of middle-classmen, let's call it. You got a lot of seniors, a lot of freshmen, a junior and a sophomore. Led by a freshman clicked the wrong link. Let me try that one more time. Led by a junior in Kimberly Scammon, nearly 16 points a game. Madeline Barnes at 14.5 points a game. You then have a number of players who are contributing, but those seem to be the two main keys, especially with Scammon averaging more than 6 rebounds a game.
Yeah, absolutely they are. Maddie was an all-conference player last year. Kim Scammon did not play last year because she was injured, but she would have been an all-conference player, in my opinion, as well. So those two are very much a 1-2 punch for us. Either one of them can go off on any given night, which makes us better. But we also have a great cast around them that is very solid, and that really does a great job. And again, we have people every night that step up to get 10 or 12 points, and so we're very excited about the whole team and thankful that we have 2 people leading us both on and off the court as well.
But what's the nuances? I mean, you look at Mara Falahy, she's averaging 5.2 rebounds a game as a sophomore. Another freshman in Claire Donnelly, 6.6 rebounds a game, though they may not be putting in a ton of points. What's the nuance of this team? Is it one of those where, you got 2 who are getting the headlines and then there's just a whole bunch of role players?
Yeah, it really is, because the thing is we try and not play anybody over 25 minutes a game. We think one of our strengths is our depth, and we have a roster of 17, so we have a lot of talent coming off the bench, and so I think people like our other starters, Mara who's averaging 5 rebounds a game, Claire who's averaging about 7, Kyra who's averaging about 7-10 points a game. I mean, they are only playing about 25 minutes. So we think if they got more minutes, they would obviously be a lot more productive in the statistical category. But that's not what makes us go. What makes us go is our depth and getting people in and out. And so we're really happy to have that depth, which is something we didn't have last year, which is, I think, a big reason for the turnaround.
Talking to Coach Dowling of Claremont-Mudd-Scripps, the Athenas off to a 12-2 start on the season so far here on Hoopsville. If you have a question for it, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or use the hashtag Hoopsville or email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Coach, let's talk about this conference. A conference you certainly know well. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's led by your alma mater in Redlands, who are 12-3, 5-1 in conference play. You're tied with Chapman and Laverne in a three-way tie at 4-1. Pomona-Pitzer at 3-3. Of course, you lost to Chapman just about 2 weeks ago. You'll be playing Cal Lutheran here in just a matter of hours. What's the makeup of this conference? Is this Redlands and then everybody else trying to beat them? Is Chapman really that in play? Are you guys in play? What's the makeup of this conference?
Yeah, as a coach, we talk about never being too high or too low. So that being said, I really believe, it's a conference up for grabs. Our conference as a whole, I would say, has improved from top to bottom. But I think Redlands and Chapman are definitely the top two. They've been there before and done that quite a bit. They were the top two teams last year behind Cal-Lu. They're both very well coached, and they both have very good seniors. So I think they're the top two, but I also think anybody can beat anybody on any given night. And, we feel really good about our team, but we also stay humble and know we have a long way to go. So we're just trying to get better and kind of let the standings play out how they're supposed to. But we think that the conference overall is very strong.
I'm going to work backwards a little bit. You played at Redlands, but after that you got into the coaching realm or ranks pretty quick. Of course, you did a lot of the higher level assistant coaching run, the Cal State Bakersfield. Of course, you went to Pepperdine, and let's be honest, leaving Pepperdine in that view has got to be the most difficult thing in the world to do, because that is a spectacular campus for view-wise. But you got a lot of that experience now that you move into here. So what do you bring from not only your playing days in Division III, but your coaching days in Division I to this coaching job in Division III?
Right. Well, first off, you're definitely right. I definitely miss the ocean view. But I love where I'm at. We're very blessed. I was really fortunate. I got an opportunity to spend 6 years at Division I and just learn from the best of the best, Olympic coaches and WNBA coaches on, just really was a sponge and tried to pick up everything I could about how to recruit, how to scout, how to coach, how to develop players. So that has really helped me being at the Division III level, where you're kind of the jack of all trades and you have to do all of those well if you want your program to succeed. So, and I also have a lot of mentors that I can pull from who've done it at the highest levels. But it's really helped me to have done, coming from Redlands, where I was a Division III student athlete myself, because they understand what it's about and, why these kids come to this place, why their education is first and foremost. And, it's been a really good balance and really helped me, I think, to be successful at CMS, having both backgrounds, being a Division III student athlete myself and understanding the culture of it, and then also, learning how to recruit and coach and scout. I think that is, having both is necessary for success.
I got to ask, the one interesting scenario, though, for you in recruiting is technically this is three schools. It's Claremont McKenna College, Harvey Mudd College, and Scripps. Was it a university? I can't remember what Scripps is. That's three distinctly different colleges that the athletics department is all under. That's got to be a weird dichotomy in the sense of recruiting.
Yeah, it's interesting when you first hear about it and you don't know about it and you come here. And for me, coming in here, I had to learn quickly because it's three different colleges. But once you're here and you learn about it, as soon as I bring a recruit on campus, they absolutely fall in love with the Claremont Consortium. There's absolutely nothing like it in the country. Right. As far as we have 5 institutions literally right next to each other where students can major and minor at either school, go to cafeterias at any school. So it's kind of the best of both worlds as far as small private colleges, but with the resources of large institutions. So it's really a blessing, and our students.
Wrapping things up here with Coach Dowling from Claremont-Mudd-Scripps women's basketball. 12-2 on the season. Let's back all the way up. You did play, and we've talked about it briefly here, in this conference. You played at Redlands. Jokingly, we talked about it earlier, you're not going to give up any games to Redlands. They're not going to want to give up any games to you. But can you take any advantages having played in this conference to what you're doing now in coaching?
First off, you're right. We bring it. I mean, we want to bring it every night, but when we play Redlands, for me personally, it's always means a little bit more. I wish them the best, every other night. But when we play them, we always want to take care of business. I think really the thing that I bring is just understanding, like I said, the Division III philosophy, and then just being from Southern California and kind of knowing the coaches, knowing the conference, knowing the recruiting contacts and all that.
Let me be shameless for a moment. You played at Redlands about the time that my brother actually was at Redlands. I did touch base with him. He says, quote unquote, yes, she was a friend of mine, so no pressure. But I believe he knew you pretty darn well.
I did know Tom. He's a great guy. He's a big Bulldog supporter, always has been, always will be. Was at lots of the games and a good friend. So I definitely know who he was, and he's a Bulldog for life, and I am too.
Yeah, he's definitely. I think they called him Jockstrap, I believe was his nickname. Reason being because he was their biggest athletic supporter. That's apparently the story I have been told. Granted, it's from my father, whose motto is never ruin a good story by sticking to the truth. Ironically, I'm in media where that's a bad idea. 12-2, 4-1. You do take on Cal Lutheran tonight. A little bit of a synopsis of what you expect in this Cal Lu team.
Yeah, Cal Lu won the conference, went to the NCAA tournament last 2 years, but they graduated quite a few seniors. This Cal Lu team is very young, but very talented. And so, again, we don't really worry about the opponent. We worry about ourselves. So we just want to play hard, play good defense, win the rebounding battle, and, hope it all works in our favor.
And of course, then home against Caltech as well before on the roads, too, after so mentioned many times, Redlands and then Chapman to round out the season. Of course, Chapman will be in a rematch of your only conference loss so far. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, especially on a night you've got a game, especially in consideration of our technical problems twice. Talking to me, that might be enough for many coaches. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those tuning in?
Hey, just appreciate your time and appreciate your consideration of CMS and the SkyEye Conference. I think we got a lot of great basketball out here in Southern California, and we appreciate all the support we can get.
Very good. There's been rumors that I'm trying to figure out a way to get out there to see some California basketball sometime soon, not meaning this season, but sometime soon in my life. Hopefully we'll make a trip by Claremont-Mudd-Scripps if we get the chance.
You would love it. We'd be happy to have you.
Great. Well, thanks, Coach. Take care. Good luck tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dave. Take care.
Bye. Coach Kristen Dowling joining us from the West Region, Claremont-Mudd-Scripps. Wonderful interview with her. We've actually done it twice now. 12-2 on the season, 4-1. Of course, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those games not in Division III. So if you want to go back and do that the hard way, it's 8-2, 4-1 in conference play, but still all the same, playing very good basketball. Again, they take on Cal Lutheran in about a little under 2.5 hours. That game at home, you can certainly watch it. Go to d3hoops.com to watch the video link there, or live stats as well. Then Caltech on Saturday, followed by Redlands and Chapman to round out January before getting into February play. Appreciate her taking the time to join us here on Hoopsville. We're going to take another break. Coming up, we got 2 more guests. Dickinson's men's basketball coach will join us, as will Vassar's men's basketball coach will join us, and we'll have time to answer your questions. So if you have questions for us, please don't hesitate to email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can also Facebook us, facebook.com/Hoopsville, or email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll jump into the Mid-Atlantic and talk men's basketball there. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by d3hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll be back right after this.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on art.
Also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
And the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Sports is important, but having the academic part along with it is a big plus.
I've discovered in myself, a newfound ability to overcome adversity at all different angles.
At a Division III school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual. The result in my mind is you just become a very well-rounded person.
Before I came into college, I didn't really think I'd be able to balance so much. It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
With a D3 school, there's a lot of time for other opportunities. The coaches expect a lot of you during soccer, but after soccer, that's your own personal time to really find out who you are and other opportunities that you can pursue.
By balancing all of my interests, basketball, my leadership skills, and academics, I'm able to better prioritize my life and to manage it.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're having a good Thursday evening. Busy time of year for sure, and hope you're enjoying the show. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by d3hoops.com, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Don't forget on Twitter at d3hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Lots to talk about tonight. We've already talked to the number 2 team in the country, the number 24 team in the country in men's basketball. Also talked West Region basketball with women's basketball coach at Claremont-Mudd-Scripps, Kristen Dowling joined us. We certainly appreciate her taking the time to do so as well. Lots to cover, and of course that means talking all the regions. And on Thursdays we talk Great Lakes, West, Mid-Atlantic, and East regions. And so we'll jump now into the Mid-Atlantic from the West Coast to Pennsylvania. Joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is Dickinson men's basketball coach Alan Seretti. Team is 12-2 on the season and rolling through the Centennial Conference right now. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to join us. This is a team that I'll tell you, there is so much talk about the Red Devils team in the offseason and in the early parts of the season. I didn't run into a Mid-Atlantic coach when talking about the region who did not bring up this squad. Certainly, you guys are probably playing up to expectations, but from your point of view, what was it like, or what's the season like?
It's been good. I mean, it's been a process. Quite frankly, we weren't where we needed to be to start the year, and even though we were getting some results, we were more getting those off of, we have a pretty big team, so we were able to generate some easy baskets, and we have a lot of experience, so we were able to edge out some teams at some endgame situations and pull away late, and some games that maybe were 12-14 we were able to run away with, but we really didn't start playing I thought the way we were capable until probably middle of December, and then we unfortunately had, as most teams go through, you had the finals break, you had the holiday break, and then we had another 10-day break after the New Year. So we're still quite not yet, I think, where we need to be, but certainly the results piece of it is really nice.
Yeah, 7-0 in the Centennial Conference is certainly a good mark as well. We'll talk about a little bit more about that in just a minute. But when you look at the rest of the conference or the non-conference schedule that you guys went out there and took on, you went up into New England, you played at Wesleyan, you got 2 wins there. Juniata then trips you guys up. Juniata is probably one of those underrated teams, especially in the Mid-Atlantic region. Then you started conference play and had somewhat of an easy time of it. Really didn't get any major threats. You rolled through Catholic by 12, beat Alvernia, who is certainly struggling this season, easily 72-57. You then beat Guilford at Randolph-Macon, but then get tripped up by Randolph-Macon the next night. And I think that's where I want to go before we get back into conference play here. You had some really big wins there. You beat Guilford. That certainly got plenty of attention. I know we were in Vegas and certainly picked up on that score. But then you stumble against a really good Randolph-Macon squad as well. How do you take that first 2 months of the season? How do you gauge what you guys did, and especially finishing up with that Randolph-Macon game?
Well, this is really our second time through this with, a team that is capable of competing at, we hope, a league championship level, or at least competing for one, and then obviously working towards what might be a national tournament situation. We only did it last year for the first time. So for us engaging the preseason and the early part of the season, we didn't know what to think. We went up to Wesleyan. We knew they would be young. We knew Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts was coming off a year where they lost in a championship game and had some guys back. So to put up the scores we did, we were excited about that. But then we looked at that also from an opponent standpoint. Wesleyan was young. Mackler wasn't quite where they were going to be or capable of being at that point. We come home, and Juniata, who you mentioned, is I think without question the most underrated team in the Mid-Atlantic, and always gives us fits and is tremendously well coached and tough and just good. They beat us, so we look at that like we don't want to give away a home game, but they're pretty good. We get into the early part of the conference season, and you mentioned some of that success, and we thought the 4-game stretch over and around finals would help us kind of identify where we really were. So we had the finals period off. We went up to Catholic, and we're fortunate to get a win there. We came home the next night because we try to test our guys. I mean, most of what you want to do during the course of a year is going to be on a back-to-back situation, whether it's within your conference or beyond. So we scheduled it that way, and you add in the travel, that's going to even be a more difficult situation. And we were, again, fortunate to get a result with Alvernia. And then going down to Guilford and Macon on essentially same as those teams, you come back from break and have 3 practices and go down and play. Played really well against Guilford and made a ton of shots. And we were really, quite frankly, more encouraged from the Macon game than maybe any of the other 3 because they're excellent, tremendously well coached. They've been there before. They've been to 5 or 6 tournaments in a row, and they're very good at home. They're physically capable. Their losses at that point had been Cabrini in a game in which they had led late with the ball. They were up 2 with 1:40 left. They had the ball. They lost to Scranton by a bucket, and both of those were on the road. So I mean, they had lost close games to great teams. And to go down there and not really play our best, of course they had a lot to do with that, but to not play our best and still have an opportunity down in the stretch of that game was, I think, defined to us what was capable.
Talking to Coach Alan Seretti here, the Dickinson Red Devils. The team is 12-2 overall, 7-0 in the Centennial Conference. After that Randolph-Macon game, you get a win against Washington College. You beat Ursinus handily. Johns Hopkins gives you a bit of a game. And now we got Haverford, Franklin and Marshall, Swarthmore and Muhlenberg ahead of you. And of course, Franklin and Marshall 10-4 in the conference, overall 6-1 in the conference, right behind you guys. McDaniel's playing well this season. They're 10-4, 5-2. Muhlenberg, Johns Hopkins, Gettysburg. That's kind of the top of the Centennial Conference. What do you make of this conference? You've got Franklin and Marshall lurking behind you. They've always been one of those teams in the Mid-Atlantic that everyone's fearful of. But McDaniel's playing well. Muhlenberg's there on the bubble. How do you see this conference shaping up as we get into the last 5-6 weeks of the season?
Well, as always, as most conference play, I think just super competitive, and Franklin and Marshall obviously has been the benchmark, and while everybody panicked a little bit from a perception standpoint as they lost their opening 2 games, and they lost to, I know Baruch has struggled, but at the time they were pretty highly thought of, and Alvernia the same way, and then they lose to St. Mary's, who obviously still a ranked team by 3 at home. It's not as if they were being blown out by nondescript teams, and they've found themselves and won 8 straight. So they're Franklin and Marshall. I mean, they are who, for lack of a better term, they are who we thought they were. And so they're always going to be good. And Muhlenberg has I think beaten us 3 or 4 of the last 5, and have one of the best posts and best point guards in the Mid-Atlantic, and surrounded by shooters, and they're terrific. And you got into you mentioned Johns Hopkins, who is always giving us fits, and tall, long, athletic, extremely well coached. So the league is a league where no one beats themselves. Year in and year out, regardless of the talent levels and the experience levels, it's tremendously well coached, and you've got to go in and you've got to play well every game, home and away, to give yourselves a chance. And that's the competitive part. That's the challenge for us. We, quite frankly, have never been through that game by game to where the expectation level was so high that we've got to show up every day, and there is an expectation that we can have success. Where in years past, if you're going, to Franklin and Marshall or to Ursinus when they were really rolling, or Muhlenberg, you knew it was going to be tough. You knew you'd have to play to an exceptional level. Well, now it's certainly the case, but we know we have the talent level where if we go in and play well enough, we should have a chance, and that almost makes it more difficult.
Yeah. Talking to Coach Alan Seretti here of Dickinson. Coach, you got to ask, to be a little bit blunt on the Centennial. I certainly know the region well. I'm based in this region. Centennial seems to be a little bit down. F&M had kind of carried the mantle for a while. There were a few years, back in 2008, Ursinus was up there. Hopkins had a number of teams that were always in the fray. You had 3, 4, 5 teams that were really deep and really competitive. It seems, and it's just from my point of view, it's you guys and then everybody else. Even Franklin and Marshall seems to be struggling. I know they've had some injuries as well. Does that put pressure on you to make sure that your out-of-conference schedule is maybe just a tick more aggressive? I mean, you have Juniata in there. You got Catholic. And, that brings in some good SOS numbers. Guilford and Randolph bring in some outstanding SOS numbers. Do you have to have that mentality that, listen, maybe the Centennial, again, it's my opinion, is a little bit down, and I need to make sure that we're in as good a position as possible?
No, I mean, I think that's fair from a scheduling standpoint. I guess I would tackle that part of it first. We knew more from our own perspective with the type of guys we have. We have 9 juniors and seniors, and after you go through a process of playing in our conference semifinals for a few years and then being fortunate to win the league last year and then going to the NCAA tournament, you play in those environments. You play against, you go to Wooster and play Wooster. Well, if we're going to play someone on a Tuesday night of break in non-league, what kind of situation is really going to test us? Where can we command our guys' attention and say, listen, if we don't do what we need to during the course of our preseason practices and our build-up, we're not going to get better against this team, or this team's going to expose us in this way. It was more of a way of defining ourselves and a challenge to our guys that, okay, we're going to play Catholic and Alvernia back-to-back nights. We're going to go down to Virginia and play Guilford and Macon, and we're going to play Juniata. We're going to go up to Wesleyan and play in a NESCAC gym, which we've never done before. All of those were more our way of challenging ourselves just to see what we were about and if this is something that was sustainable beyond just the success we had last year. I think the other part of that you mentioned, the league part is tough to gauge because within each league, it's always going to be ultra competitive and ultra difficult. And then when I look out of league at some of the results, I still see Muhlenberg going down to DeSales and having success there, and I see them battling Scranton at Scranton, and I still see F&M with the game against St. Mary's and being super competitive. I see some of the games we played non-league. I see Calkins going out to California and being really competitive with 2 good teams. So I think from a national standpoint and teams running off a bunch of wins and having a gaudy record, I don't know if we have the depth of that. But as far as showing up on a night and being able to compete with pretty good teams, throughout our region and even in some cases throughout the country, I still think that's within the league. I just think the landscape of the league has shifted a bit, and it's kind of a new reality for our league. With, like you said, like with McDaniel too. Kevin had a tremendous few years when he first got there, and he's really got them back going and playing great. And they go over to Lycoming and a pretty traditionally strong Matt Commonwealth team, and they win that tournament. And so there's still results where our league is holding their own, but maybe not as dominant on the top end as we've been.
Talking to Coach Alan Seretti, I appreciate that point of view, Coach. Let's talk a little bit about your team that's battling in this conference and in this region. You have a number of seniors, but you're very deep and plenty of players across the board. You're led by Adam Honig, 17.2 points a game. Gary Wickstead, 16.5 points a game. I mean, that's a dangerous duo. And then you got plenty of contributions coming from Steve Collins and Brandon Angrandi, Tom McInerney, and even Tucker Landy. But it's Honig and Wickstead that certainly get the headlines. They're getting the points, that's for sure. And Wickstead's already hauled in 116 rebounds on the season. if it's not just those two, what's the makeup of this squad?
Well, I think it's a different guy, different night mentality. No question those guys are our leaders. No question we play through them on the offensive end, and they really dictate our intensity level on the defensive end, and they've done that, quite frankly, for a couple of years now, and that gives us an opportunity to where on nights when you're not playing great, on nights when you don't maybe have your best physically, which during the course of a 25-game season is going to occur, those two guys can sometimes will you through some situations offensively. We can throw it inside, and Jerry can do some things, or he can step out a bigger guy and make shots. And then Adam has really been tremendous in big spots. To start that 4-game stretch at Catholic, the young man at Catholic that's a sophomore is a tremendous point guard, Bryson Fawnville, and Adam went down and had 30 that night and was terrific. And so those opportunities where we're in a big spot and you want to see a leader, you want to see an older guy step forward and be able to make plays, he's been able to do that, and Jerry's been able to do that. And, I mentioned to start this with different guys, different night. There have been nights when those two guys have struggled or teams have been able to take them away or challenge them, and that's when having the senior leadership and having the talent depth that we do have, that's when Tucker steps up and has 20 down at McDaniel when those two guys weren't playing. That's when Brandon Angrotti steps up and makes big shots. When even against Hopkins the other day, we're struggling, we're down 9, and he makes 2 threes back to back, and we kind of right the ship. Ted Inningcamp comes in and grabs a rebound. Steve Collins goes up to Wesleyan and wins the MVP. So we've been really fortunate that those two have certainly led us from a production standpoint, and we play through them. But on their nights when they're taken away or for some reason they struggle, there's been other guys who are more than capable.
Talking to Coach Alan Seretti here. Coach, a couple more quick questions to get at. We'll stay in conference and get into the region here. Your next 3 games, tough in the sense that you're on the road. You're going to play 5-7 Haverford, who's 1-6 in the conference, coming up here on Saturday on the road. You then take on Franklin and Marshall next Wednesday on the road. You then take on Swarthmore next Saturday on the road. Certainly, Swarthmore and Haverford, record-wise, aren't a major threat, but Swarthmore has certainly come a long way. Haverford, you never know what you're going to get sometimes. But you're also playing them at their place, along with it's always difficult game at F&M. How important is it going to take for you guys not only to take it game by game, but to keep the focus here in the next 3?
They're all huge. I mean, they're all in conference play, and it's something I'm sure all coaches stress, and we do as well. One is as valuable as the next. So you can go into F&M and get a result, but if you drop the next one at home, it doesn't matter. I mean, they're all just as valuable. And for us, in looking at this stretch, at Haverford, at F&M, at Swarthmore, and Muhlenberg at home, it wasn't in that order last year, but in those gyms against those teams, we went 1-3 in that same stretch, and the only win we had was at Swarthmore, and they missed a 3 to put it to overtime. So I think that catches the attention of our guys immediately. And you mentioned, I mean, the growth that Swarthmore has shown under Landry and Coach Mucci at Haverford. They're always tremendously well coached and prepared and play well within how they play, and those teams have always given us trouble. So, we're just trying to get better, whether it's practice or game situation. Like you said, we are taking a game at a time, but that stretch is a very, very challenging one for us.
Regionally wise, things are certainly interesting. The Mid-Atlantic region, probably in the lower half of regions over the last few years in terms of top teams, the number of, and of course depth. But this year seems like it's on its head. You have Cabrini, St. Mary's, Wesley, Mary Washington's entered the fray. You've got yourselves. Of course, F&M's always part of the conversation. Messiah. Alvernia at the beginning of the year, though they're still lurking. Stevenson. I mean, you've got a ton of teams in this region. And by the way, I didn't even mention the Landmark. You've got Juniata playing well. You've got Catholic, who you could always threaten, though they're a little off this year. Scranton, who's certainly in the fray as well. Number of teams who are playing really good basketball, at least this season, and making some of these conferences really deep. How much do you think that changes the perception? How much do you think that changes how the NCAA tournament may play out?
That's the tremendous question, and I think that's to the point that we discussed earlier with our league, with the Centennial. It's hard to say. I mean, it's really hard to gauge. I mean, all of us, who look at the region or look at your league, and you have to try to gauge the ability of a team, not only with what you see on film, certainly, but if you haven't seen them, you're looking at comparative scores. Well, now it's based upon who is the basis of your comparison, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So when you look at the early season and you look at a team like Middlebury, who came down to our region and played in the Hoopsville, and obviously tremendous. Coach Brown does a tremendous job, super talented, have been great up in the NESCAC, and I think a lot of the results from the early season were based off the fact that this is Middlebury. I mean, this is one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah.
And since that time, they have struggled a little bit. And so were the teams that they were competing with, does that change your perception of them? And that's happening with almost weekly now. And I just use that example because it's first to come to mind.
Good one.
It's happened numerous times to where you look at this score and say, like, wow, they beat them, or they only lost to them by 2 or 3. And then further down the line, you see the team that you're basing your comparison on has lost 4 straight. So what does that mean now? Did they just hit a lull? Or, you spoke of Alvernia struggling before. They're really good.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not super deep, but they're tremendously well coached. They've got older guys. Is part of their struggles the schedule that they put together, and has that worn on them? And maybe they catch their stride and they're going to be back, at the top of that league, or were we wrong in the first place? And that's why it's extremely interesting year and one of the strangest that we've been a part of. As you look at the region and we start to have our rankings calls in the end of the month, there's legitimately 16, 18 teams that can argue for those 8 spots.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The 8 spots are going to be fascinating. And then, of course, when it comes to NCAA tournament selection time, we might even go deeper than 8 if this keeps up out of the Mid-Atlantic. And I haven't seen that happen in a really long time. I'm stalling quickly because I just remembered I wanted to check something before I asked you another particular question. So give me a second. By the way, what's the buzz on campus? You guys 12-2 here.
No one's here, so no buzz yet.
Oh, come on. Yeah. No dedication?
No, the students come back actually this weekend, and we get to, that's been another challenge, as with everybody, at all college sports right now, but kind of the doldrums of January, and you're trying to work through no one being around and eating off campus every day, and just the schedule part of it. So we're working through that, and excited to get the students back here. The first game that they'll be back to is Muhlenberg on the 28th, so hopefully we're still doing okay by then.
Thank you for stalling for me. It got me my answer. I thought you were on the committee, but I didn't want to assume that. You're on the RAC for the Mid-Atlantic region representing the Centennial. Of course, the chair of the region is Steve Ulrich, who's the chair of the national committee. He's, of course, your commissioner in the Centennial Conference. So I got to ask, because we're at that point in the season where now this has become the topic of conversation. That is the eventual regional rankings that will come out in a few weeks. I know you're going to start going through the practice phases, as it were. What in your mind is, or what has Steve told? I don't want to like inside baseball stuff, but what is if people are looking at a team's record and they're looking at SOS numbers and stuff, what is the important factors we should be keying on from your point of view?
From my point of view, as RAC member or coach?
Well done. Let's go with RAC member, because honestly, when it comes down to it, that's the most important point of view.
Yeah, no question. I think yearly, I've been on the committee twice, so this will be my 6th year of 2 separate terms. And the RAC has changed. When I was first on the committee, it was 100% numbers basis. When they just went to the strength of schedule, we didn't have as much input on what we saw or what we experienced or who we played against in the time. And since my second turn, a tour of duty here, that's changed a little bit, and there is a little bit more discussion about injuries and when the game was played and who's playing well and who's seen who. It's not controlling. Obviously, the numbers are still controlling, but in most cases, particularly when we're dealing with a field so deep as the one that we're going to deal with this year, it does become more subjective because we're really splitting hairs. And I think then it becomes down to which controlling factor your RAC committee wants to use. And the national level will give us some advice on that and say, okay, at our level, the head-to-head, or where you're at in your league, or et cetera, that's going to be controlling in these tiebreaker situations. But they do give us some autonomy in those situations. So that's something in the early calls that we're going to have to determine. And once you determine that, toward that criteria as closely as you can, so you're consistent. And that's, I think, the one aim of the committee, and Steve has done an excellent job, is consistency, because you could look at it 100 different ways when the numbers are really that close. And aside from looking at the region as a whole now, and no disrespect to anyone, you look at Cabrini, they're the best team in the region to me. I don't know if that's in play or in doubt. Now Wesley's going to have something to say about that when they play in January. But aside from that, from 2 down, I really couldn't tell. I think you're throwing darts at this point.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. I could throw it around myself. Quickly, you talk about looking at the subjective stuff, the injuries, the head-to-head stuff. Certainly that comes into play into head-to-head. But what you're basically saying is instead of just looking at head-to-head and go, okay, they won that game, or comparable games, okay, they won that game, you're also taking a deeper look into understanding why they won that game.
I think so, and I think it's only in the case of when you're trying to split hairs. When you look at the primary
we're deep
criteria,
in the criteria at this point.
Yeah, when you look at the primary and you can't really split it, and you look at the secondary and it's negligible, now how are you going to split it? And again, you try to have some common, concrete things that you stick to, and if you start getting too far into, well, he was hurt and he was injured, then it's going to be a little bit unfair, and it's going to be a little too subjective. But we've had factors in the last few years, quite frankly, where a team or two has been missing a player, and with that player, they were a completely different team. You have to be mindful of that. We are trying to put the best teams in the right positions to be competitive on a national level. But again, the numbers will dictate how we can put those teams in order. But when it's close and when we can use some factors, I think the committee on a national level has been fair to utilize the experiences that the coaches have in seeing the teams and understanding the personnel. But again, it is the numbers are going to tell us what to do, but some of that subjective information, it can help.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to join us. I appreciate the last couple of answers there as well. Certainly a frank conversation. I certainly love those the most. Red Devils are 12-2 on the season, 7-0 in the Centennial Conference. Again, Haverford on Saturday, followed by Franklin and Marshall and Swarthmore. Next week on the road before they wrap up at home against Muhlenberg, as Coach points out. That'll be the first time the students will get a chance to watch their teams since the break. Coach, as always, we give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, first off, if we get kicked off the RAC committee for having too frank of a discussion, I'm going to point it back at you guys. but secondly, no, as always, appreciate the time, appreciate what you guys do for the level. I know our parents, our students, our campus enjoys checking things out now that we've gotten a little bit better, and it wouldn't be possible without the work that you guys put in, so we certainly appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate you taking the time to join us as well. Went a little longer than expected as well, so I appreciate you taking the time. Good luck the rest of the season. Certainly going to enjoy watching the Red Devils. I'll try and catch a game when I get the opportunity as well. Otherwise, we'll hopefully be talking to you in March as well.
We hope so. I appreciate that. Have a great night.
You too. Take care, Coach.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Coach Alan Seretti joining us here. Dickinson, 12-2 as we mentioned, 7-0 in the Centennial Conference. Fun team to watch in what is turning out to be a very deep Mid-Atlantic region. We're going to take a break. We're a little bit late here, but we're going to get to East Region and men's basketball at Vassar. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Vassar College men's basketball coming up after the break right here on Hoopsville.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful Thursday evening on January 16th. We're pretty much midway through the basketball season. If you hadn't noticed already, your teams have probably played their half allotment of 25 games. They are certainly starting to finish up the first round of conference action if they're in a double round robin set, and they will go into the second round. So certainly plenty of basketball to talk about. We've had some great coaches so far on the show. We appreciate everybody taking the time to join us. A quick reminder, we'll talk about it a little bit more later. Our fundraising campaign is underway. It's been underway for about 5 days now. And we're just looking for your help to help the show. You'll notice our videos have been a little bit choppy. We've had some technical problems a lot this season. Not how we like to do the show. We've also had a lot of requests to do more with the show. We'd love to have our coaches appear via video instead of just on a telephone line. So there's a lot to talk about. We've tweeted out a lot of what we're doing. We certainly would appreciate it if you take at least a look at it and share it on with others if necessary, or if you'd like to make a contribution, we'd appreciate that as well. There are some perks along the way if you want to do so. We certainly encourage you to look at that. We'll talk more about that. We'll have some about it. Tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Let's go to the Hoopsville line once again. We're jumping up into the East region, and we're going to talk Vassar men's basketball. The Brewers are 9-2 overall, one of the best starts in program history, 1-1 in conference play. And we talked to first-year head coach BJ Dunn. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Hey, Dave, thank you very much for having me tonight.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time. First and foremost, congratulations on the job, and heck of a way to make a first impression.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a great start, and I kind of wake up every morning. I got to pinch myself to make sure I'm still not dreaming. But it's been one heck of a ride so far, and we're excited to keep this thing going.
Yeah, we should mention you got the job to start this year. This is a scenario where you're the youngest coach, by the way, in all of division, or all NCAA, all divisions. Of course, it's your second year at the college. You were an assistant last year. Just tell everybody kind of what led you to this head coaching position.
Well, I think it really first started, I think I come from a pretty good coaching pedigree, and I played at Bates College, and I had a pretty good career, and I played under Coach Riley and Coach Furbish there, and the guy who kind of gave me a shot in the business and kind of believed in me first was Stephen Brennan, the head coach at Babson College, and I kind of owe him a lot for this. And I was fresh out of school, and I kind of went into his office and asked him if he knew of any open coaching jobs, and he offered me a job right then and there, and it was pretty neat. And
that's a heck of an interview.
I took a chance, and I learned a lot from him. And then I had an opportunity to work for Jim O'Brien at Emerson College, and he was the former National Coach of the Year in 1999, a pretty good guy to learn from. And, I kind of continued to kind of get an itch to really want to become a head coach. And then I ended up at Vassar last year and was an assistant, and I just was kind of in a position where I think I impressed some people along the way being an assistant in the department and made some pretty good connections. And when the job opened up, I, got offered the job in July, and kind of haven't looked back since, and just kind of took it on the run and, hired, I think, the best assistant coach in the country in Seth Eisner, and together we combined for 50 years of age on the staff. And, he coached for 2 years out of Oswego State, and he learned from a great coach in Jason Leone. He's been in the NCAA tournament. So, the two of us are just really excited about being here, doing and kind of what we've accomplished. We're really just excited about.
I did talk to Coach Jason Leone a couple shows ago, and I'm not saying he actually said this, but I think Seth may be dead to it. I'm not positive.
I think that too, but I'm glad he's on my staff, and he's definitely not going to be dead to me for a while. So.
It's certainly impressive. I mean, being the youngest coach, I love how the job interview for the very first job was pretty much, well, I have an opening, you're hired. It's not only are you the youngest coach, it's your first year, but you already won more games than last year's squad, met the win total from 2 years ago. Not even close to 2 years before that, 10 wins and 9. Of course, this is a team that won 18 games back in 07-08 and 06-07. How important is it to you to bring the Brewers kind of back to that heyday of competing in the Liberty League and winning 18 games a season and hoping to make the NCAA tournament?
You know, it's definitely important, and that's definitely our goal, is to be in the NCAA tournament this year. And, you know, when I took the job in July, you know, having been here, I knew the personnel on the team. I also knew, you know, the makeup of the league and what our, you know, opponents, what they had and what they ran, and I felt pretty comfortable. And when I was kind of trying to come up with, you know, how we were going to play offensively and defensively, I felt like, you know, it was going to fit nicely into the players we had and the players we're going to recruit here for the future. And, you know, I really am big on tradition. I like looking back into the past and kind of seeing, you know, how successful those two teams were when they won 18 games back-to-back. And, you know, I knew it had been accomplished here. We knew it had been done. And we knew going into this year on October 15th, we had the pieces. You know, we felt like we had a really good guard. You know, we had a scorer who can stretch the defense, who's clever with the ball. You know, we had two kind of dirty, big guys who like get nasty in the paint, and, you know, they can do a lot of different things for us. And we felt like we had a lot of glue guys, and, you know, we just felt like our makeup was great, and we felt like if there's a time to really be successful in the league, we felt like it's this year. And, you know, kind of on October 15th, you know, I know it's corny, but, you know, we read the Burn Your Boat passage to our guys and just kind of talked to them about, you know, are you going to be willing to burn your boat? Are you going to be fully committed to the task at hand and just face our enemies, face our fears, face everything we want head on? Or are we going to be just like the teams of the past 5 years with just one boat, 1 foot on boat and 1 foot on land, and kind of ready to retreat? And, you know, I give our guys all the credit in the world with this. They really have bought in, and they've stayed locked in throughout this year. And, you know, they knew, and they're motivated by, yeah, we've won 7 games last year. They won 9, you know, the year before. We've won 9 league games in 3 years.
Yeah.
And we constantly remind that. And, you know, we constantly walk into the gym, and, you know, our women's program has been so successful. They've won, you know, the league 2 years out of the past 3. And we walk in the gym every day, and, you know, we see their banner hanging in the gym, and that motivates us. You know, we want our own banner. You know, we want to be recognized, and, you know, we feel like we can definitely do that. And that was everybody's goal on October 15th, was to win the Liberty League. And, you know, we went to Skidmore Friday night, and I think they're the best team in the league. They're definitely the most talented, and we beat them on the road. And you know, we felt pretty confident. And, you know, obviously we dropped a tough one to Union Saturday, and we have Hobart coming in tomorrow night, but we really feel like we can compete with the highest teams in this league.
Yeah, I actually chose you guys because you lost to Union. I just couldn't resist. It's ridiculous. No, I'm just kidding. You look at your conference schedule. You know, Drew's in there, and they're a tough opponent, and you guys got that win. It's not a world beater's schedule, but it does seem like the perfect schedule to take a program to the next level, to instill confidence in your program. Is that kind of the quiet, you know, silent, you know, way of saying that? I mean, New Paltz, by the way, you've got a 12-point win on them, and they beat Oswego State the other night, you know, for the first time since 2001. Is it one of those where you get this kind of ball rolling, and then the momentum kind of helps you get even better and better, and then you ratchet up the pressure?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. You know, when we were putting together a non-conference schedule, we were big on playing some teams that were really conducive to what we're going to see in the league, because that's really, you know, all that matters. And, you know, New Paltz was a great win. We hadn't beat New Paltz in 6 years, and we hadn't beaten them on the road in 10 years. You know, Western Connecticut State, you know, we wanted them on the schedule because they're a team that's been in the NCAA tournament, you know, multiple times, and most recently, I believe, a few years ago. And they're always really tough. And, you know, we felt like, you know, if we want to play in the NCAA tournament, we need to simulate NCAA tournament games with teams that have been there. Drew was a really good team. You know, Mike Klinger is one of the best guards we've seen all year. He can really score. John Ford really stretched the floor. You know, they had a couple of big guys, and that was a pretty good game. And then we wanted to play 2 NESCACs. You know, Vassar's never beat a NESCAC in program history, and, you know, this year we were able to beat 2 of them. And, you know, Conn College is very similar to teams we see on the road. They run a similar offense to Hobart, which we'll see tomorrow night. And, you know, Trinity is, I think, you know, a sleeper in the NESCAC. They're super athletic. They're really long. They're well coached. They have some guards who can really go and can make shots. And, you know, those 2 teams really, I think, helped us prepare for what we're going to see in the Liberty League. And, you know, when we got hot after we beat Roger Williams, you know, we're down 15 with, you know, 18 minutes to go. And, you know, we went on a great run and ended up beating them. We just kind of stayed hot. And you're right, we just got rolling. And, you know, now, you know, kind of the joke is we take one game at a time, but we're going to try and rip off 9 more games in a row after that loss on Saturday to Union.
Talking to Vassar men's basketball coach BJ Dunn. Team is 9-2, 1-1 in the conference. Let's quickly talk about the team, Coach. You have, 2 seniors on this squad. Otherwise, it's a bunch of underclassmen, especially juniors. Team is playing well, though. Johnny Merlick leading the way at 17.5 points a game, along with 6 rebounds a game. Yeah, that's correct. 12-plus points a game out of Erickson Wassel. 11-plus points out of game out of Luca Layden. Nearly 10 points a game from Alex Snyder. I mean, that's a lot of guys contributing. You're getting quite a bit on the boards. You guys are shooting well, outscoring your opponents. What's, besides just the guys I mentioned, what's the makeup of this unit?
Well, I think, the way we play really allows for the ball to be shared, and it's really team basketball. We play Princeton style, 2-guard style that, you see a lot of these teams playing. We do some different stuff on makes and misses, and, I just think it allows these guys to have some freedom and move the basketball. We get the ball down low, we kick it out, we run a lot of slice, stagger action, some ball screen stuff, UCLA action, and it really allows a lot of these guys to kind of thrive. And, Johnny and Erickson are great shooters. Erickson right now is actually 4th in the country in three-point field goal percentage. He's shooting 53% from 3, which is it's amazing. It's great. I mean, this weekend he had 10 threes alone, and Johnny can do a lot of different stuff with the basketball. And then Luca and Alex, like I mentioned before, they're really great with their back to the basket, and Luca can shoot a little bit about a 15-foot jumper, and he can rip and go to the rim. And then we got Curtis Smith, who scores 8 a game. So we got 5 guys who score over 8, and then when we have play from our senior Evan Carberry, and he's been able to stretch the floor. He's hit a couple threes lately. He can get to the rim. He does a good job with slips. So, we just play, I think, a fun style that allows these guys to play fast, but at the same time, we kind of can grind people out in the half court, and that kind of allows a lot of different guys to produce, throughout the game. The other night we played St. Joe's Brooklyn. We got 29 points from our bench, and, that was needed in a dogfight for that win, and we're going to need other guys to step up in league play, and I think it's great because no one really has a lot of pressure on them. We don't really rely heavily on one guy, and the scoring's kind of spread out and allows our guys to play loose, especially when you're coming down the stretch here in league play.
Talking to Coach BJ Dunn here of Vassar, the men's basketball team off to a 9-2 start, 1-1 in conference play, talking about his team, and certainly I got to say, a rather dapper bio headshot that we are using for the show. But I got to ask, they got you in an interesting pose in another picture I've seen where you're reaching up, but looking a little perplexed. Do I dare ask the story behind that picture?
Yeah, I don't know. I get pretty fired up on the sideline sometimes. I'm glad you just didn't see me in a squat and clapping and maybe stomping my foot, because I think our SID, I think they had that picture hidden somewhere for some blackmail down the line.
Yeah, well, anything's possible with coaches. I've seen it all. So you lose the Union 79-74. Let's talk about this Liberty League. Hobart on top, coach, one of the deans of coaching in Coach Neer there. 8-4, 2-1, probably playing below expectations. Skidmore 8-4, 2-1, certainly playing well. RPI, though 4-8, is 2-1 in conference play, and they're the ones who are tied atop. You're now right behind them at 1-1. St. Lawrence, who a lot of people have always have an eye on, both struggling at 4-6 is with you. Union's 4-6. It's really interesting because then you get to Clarkson, who's 0-1, but they're 6-4. Rochester Tech 0-1, 6-4. This conference just seems like a confusion, for lack of a better description. How do you see the conference?
Well, I think it's a really good conference. First of all, I have a lot of respect for the other coaches in the conference. I think they all do a great job with their teams, and they run some great stuff offensively and defensively. And I think what's really difficult about the conference is we all play 3-game weeks. We play that 3 or 4 times a season, and you play back-to-back Friday, Saturday, and like what we saw, you come out Friday night, you beat a great Skidmore team, you got to hop back on the bus 2 hours in the morning and go play Union, who's pretty good, and you got to be ready to go. And anybody on any given night can beat anybody. And I think Hobart, they're really well coached. Coach Neer, I mean, he did it at Rochester. He's done it at Hobart. They're the defending league champions, and they have Richie Bonney, who's a preseason All-American. He's absolutely dominant in the post. And Skidmore is, they're really talented. They got a lot of scores, and Coach Burke does a great job with them. And And then RPI is really always difficult to prepare for, especially for us because we play them on a Tuesday. They play that run and gun. They trap you all over the court, and they're the only team that plays that way. So I think they have a really big advantage in league play because you haven't really seen that from any other team. And then you kind of get into Vassar, Clarkson, Union, St. Lawrence, where I think we all like to grind you out. We're all real physical. I think there's some good guard play. There's definitely some good big play from those teams, and then RIT is they were up by 2 against Hobart. They got up early. We just watched that film. They were up by double digits and they were playing with some confidence. And Bard's much improved, and they have a couple really good players. Lamar Powell, their guards, leading the league in scoring at 23 a game, and Burnett is a very good big. And they have Fabian Scotch, who's a good shooter as a freshman. So I just think there's a lot of parity this year in this league. Last year it was kind of senior dominant with Steph Thompson at Hobart, and Union had Kevin Donahue, and but this year I think you're going to see there's going to be Liberty League is going to get better in the next couple of years. Skidmore's got a lot of youth. We have some youth. Hobart, they have some youth. Clarkson and Union and St. Lawrence do as well. So I just think any given night anybody can beat anybody, and I think we're not really going to know who's going to be in the top 4 until that second or potentially last week of conference play.
I don't think you have these teams scouted whatsoever. Not at all.
I told you on October 15th, everybody's goal is to win the league, so I got to do my part, and I got to scout for these guys. Yeah. They're going to play pretty hard for me. I got to do my job too. So
what's interesting is the next 5 games at home: Hobart, Rochester Tech, Bard, Clarkson, St. Lawrence. On paper, Hobart's your biggest test. That's coming up here tomorrow night. But it's 5 at home. How important is it to get business done at home? Because the next 4 against RPI, Bard, Rochester Tech, and Hobart are on the road before you return home on February 14th. How important are the next 5 games, especially for the overall success of this season?
Well, they're super important. We talked about that today in our team meeting. And, first of all, though, if there's any, Poughkeepsie residents that are listening to this, we definitely want you guys to come out, tomorrow night and Saturday, because none of our students are back on campus for this weekend. But these games are absolutely huge. These next 5, it's a monster week, and it's a stretch that myself and my assistant we talked about at the beginning of the year. If there's an opportunity for us to really make some separation in this league and really get to where we want to go, we have to come out of here over 500. Even 3-2, 4-1, and potentially 5-0 this week. We play well at home. I think everybody in the league does, and especially when we have Hobart RIT. They're traveling 4 to 5 hours. Clarkson, St. Lawrence, they're traveling 6 to 7 hours, and then Bard is just down the street. But if we can really jump on guys early, and we play with the type of urgency and intensity we need to play at home and protect our home court, I think we can be successful in these next 5 games.
Brewers 9-2, 1-1 in Liberty League play. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Certainly going to watch the Burgundy and Gray continue on here as you're 9-2 and hopefully overcome that Union loss. Of course, big game against Hobart tomorrow, Rochester Tech on Saturday, followed by Bard and Clarkson, Bard midweek, Clarkson and St. Lawrence the following weekend. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Yeah, Dave, I just, we can't thank you enough for just having me on the show tonight, and we really appreciate it. We really appreciate what you guys do for D3 Hoops, and not only was tonight really great exposure for our program, but it was just really great for, Vassar College as well, and, we're just super excited about the big things that, are brewing here, so to say, and, we're just super committed to, trying to make our men's basketball program one of the more elite programs of the high academic Division III institutions. So, again, thank you very much for having me on the show, and, again, we appreciate it as always.
Well, thank you, Coach. It's been a long time, I think, since anyone's been able to say the men's basketball team and the women's basketball team, both 9-2 to start the season. Congratulations, and we will look forward to seeing how you do, especially in the next 5, but as the season closes out as well.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Coach BJ Dunn joining us here from Vassar. Congratulations to that team. Awfully great start for them. Looking forward to seeing how they play the rest of the way. Again, against Hobart coming up tomorrow night. Looking forward to seeing how that one. Got a couple questions. Got a couple things we'll mention. First and foremost, I got Ira Thor. If you don't know Ira, he's the sports information director at New Jersey City. he had one of the more miserable games to pay attention to, if you are paying attention to it. Last night, I believe the score was 39-38, men's basketball game. It finished in overtime. 39-38 overtime game. Halftime score of that was 19-15. I have seen that in women's basketball. I have not seen that in men's basketball. That is pretty astonishing. I bring it up only because he is clearly working as a hired assist tonight, or he's at a game. I don't know, but it's at St. Peter's in Division I MAAC, and with 2 minutes left in the first half, the picture he tweeted out said it was 24-7. Gotta love Ira's luck on having just bad basketball games to follow in the last couple of days. That on the flip side, did anybody see the double overtime game between Messiah and Stevenson? I am biased because I was at the game. It was an awesome Mid-Atlantic national game, to be honest with you. A slugfest, an instant classic, as it were. Stevenson has made the game available on demand, which is a rarity. If you can, go check it out. Nobody led by more than 6, and I believe that was a 6-0 lead to start the game for Messiah. Nobody had more than maybe 4 points, I think, in the last 45 minutes. The game was back and forth on a great article written by Rob Knox for D3Hoops.com. He pointed out that Coach Gary Stewart's quote was, he told his team it was like Ali Frazier. Back and forth. The two teams would trade shots, would trade stops. It was a well-played game. One of the guys running the broadcast, actually our former producer, or not former, he just hasn't been able to join us this year, Chris Taher. Chris pointed out that I think we were in the first overtime and nobody was in foul trouble. It was a well-played game. Stevenson won 103-99 in double overtime. By the way, that was following a game in which the women's basketball teams played a terrific game, and Stevenson had a 40-foot bank shot at the buzzer to win that one. So a great night of basketball at Stevenson. Stevenson's one of those teams in the Mid-Atlantic in the top 25. Put it this way, I would be hard-pressed to believe Stevenson doesn't deserve to be in the top 25 if they win on Sunday at Lycoming. If they win. If they lose, we're back into the conversation of not being able to win on the road, or not being able to back up big wins either. But Stevenson's in the conversation. Messiah should stay in the top 25. They are a darn good basketball team. If anybody eliminates them from their ballot because they lost to Stevenson, I want to talk to them. I've noticed over the years that a lot of top 25 voters are way too trigger happy. A team loses, they're out of my top 25, or they drop them 10 spots. I wish a lot of the trigger happy mentality would disappear, but that's just my opinion. I try and be a little bit more conservative. Jamie had a question for us. Being an old DAC guy, other than Virginia Wesleyan, who do you like in the NCAA tournament? Can 3 or 4 from the ODAC make it out? If anybody remembers, last year 3 teams actually did make it out, or 4 teams made it out of the ODAC. It was certainly impressive, to say the least. Virginia Wesleyan's playing well, but I'm a little concerned about them. I mean, they're deep. We talked to Coach Dave Macedo last show. They're deep. They're playing well. I certainly like them, but the whole thing of losing to Bridgewater on the road didn't sit well. Of course, they then spanked Randolph as a result. Guilford's a good team. Guilford ran into a stretch there, I think, 3 straight losses. They've righted the ship from that. That was their only losses of the season. You'll remember Virginia Wesleyan went through a stretch like that last year. Of course, the losing stretch started with Dickinson, who we talked to Coach Seretti earlier on the show. They then lost to Birmingham Southern and then lost to that Messiah squad. So let's re-examine this conversation now. Guilford has lost to a Dickinson squad who's one of the top in the Mid-Atlantic region, is getting votes in the top 25. They lose to a Birmingham Southern team that has struggled but has played a darn good schedule this season. And then they lose to a Messiah team who just lost their first game to Stevenson. Both teams are probably top 25 ranked. that tells me that maybe, and I took Guilford out of the top 25. When you go through a stretch like that, it's hard to keep you in a top 25. But that tells me that Guilford and Coach Tom Palumbo has got a terrific team there. Over Randolph-Macon already this season. They beat North Carolina Wesleyan. They're on top of this conference at 5-0 and 11-3 overall. Virginia Wesleyan and Randolph-Macon are 4-1. Watch out for Randolph-Macon. Coach Nathan Davis does a terrific job there. Remember, that was a team that surprisingly jumped into the NCAA tournament by jumping into the regional rankings, had the best SOS numbers in the country last year, and then proved it by getting all the way to the Sweet 16 before just flat out running out of gas. They had to travel great distances there, and they ran into Amherst, who went on to win the national championship. They're lurking. Lynchburg is lurking at 10-4 and 3-2. I don't know what to make of Hampden-Sydney. This team befuddles me. They're 9-5, 3-2. They've gotten some top 25 love, but you know what? I'm done with them until they actually go and win something. Randolph is well coached by my friend Clay Nunley, 9-5, 3-2. Shenandoah, have you checked out Shenandoah this season? 10-4 while being 2-3 in the conference. They have a win over North Carolina Wesleyan. They lost to Mary Washington, who's in the top 25. They lost to Lynchburg, who is a very good team in the ODAC. They lost to Guilford by 1. They beat an average Gettysburg squad. They beat a low-end Berry, a low-end Millsaps. They beat Roanoke handily, and Roanoke's about a 500 team right now. They lost to Randolph-Macon 103-80. I know that. That doesn't look good. I'm wondering, that's one of those run out of gas, Randolph-Macon's playing really well type of games. They got Hampden-Sydney ahead. If they win that game, everything changes for the Hornets. Everything changes for the ODAC. I really like how the ODAC looks this year. I think 3 teams can come out of the ODAC as long as they don't beat each other up too much. I mean, you're looking at Guilford, Virginia Wesleyan, and Randolph-Macon already with 3 or 4 losses. I think they got to take care of business a little bit more. But I could see 3 teams coming out of the ODAC. I definitely would say 2 teams are definitely coming out of the ODAC this season. I don't think you'll get the 4 like you did last year. Another question I got from D-Train, our good friend up in the East. Have you looked at the East region at all this year? Was wondering what teams you think are good and can compete in the NCAAs. You know what? The East is a hodgepodge that I'm not all that thrilled about, to be honest with you, D-Train. I think you've got a bunch of teams that just can't find their footing, if that makes any sense. Let me call up some of these teams. Of course, you start in the Empire 8 because that was the first one I clicked on. Alfred is 10-2. Hartwick's 8-6. Alfred, I think, is a little bit, they might be good. I'm going to keep an eye on them. They have a loss to Hilbert. They have a loss to Allegheny. They haven't really played anybody, to be honest with you. So I think that rating might be a little bit overrated. They, of course, haven't even played Hartwick yet. That game coming up here this weekend. I'd be more interested to see what happens there. But I'm not thrilled with the Empire 8. I mean, your team, Nazareth, is 8-5, 2-2. Stevens is down even as well. Empire 8 is just, it's not impressive this year. I'm a little disappointed. I know Nazareth beat Hartwick. They have a win over Rochester, which now doesn't look all that great. They did lose to Hobart. They lost to Elizabethtown, and by my rankings, that's not, or they beat Elizabethtown, but it's okay. You lost to Juniata. That's not a bad loss. But you lost to Stevens as well. Stevens is down at 8-5 this year. St. John Fisher, I think there were high expectations. They're 8-5. Ithaca, who had a terrific year last year, we know he lost a lot, but they're 4-10. Empire 8 just not jumping out at me this year. Liberty League, we just got done talking. Hobart surprisingly down at 8-4. I thought they'd be better. I want to see what Coach Neer does the rest of the way. But Hobart's always one of those teams because they're well coached that could do something. You never know about Skidmore either. In the SUNYAC, this is just a who's who of craziness. Oswego State 10-3, but now 4-2 in the conference because they lose for the first time since 2001 to New Paltz. Okay. Pretty sure Coach Leone not happy with that. Brockport looking good at 9-1, 3-0 in the conference. I like the Golden Eagles right now. I think they can certainly do something, but I think they need to prove some things. Big game against Oswego State at home coming up this weekend before Cortland State after that. That's a good test for Brockport. I think they'll get more top 25 love if they come out of that 2-0. NEAC, just because it's in my radar, we have Morrisville State. Remember the darlings of last year's NCAA tournament, got a lot of preseason love. They are 6-5 overall. Certainly not what everybody expected. Losses to NYU, Geneseo State, Keuka, that's not good. Lancaster Bible, that's not good. Hamilton, not what you really want to do there. I think that there's a disappointment there in Morrisville State. We'll see if they can recover, but not somebody I think are going to be a threat this year like they were last. Liberty League, we talked about. Somehow I clicked on it again. UAA, NYU is 11-1. Terrific, but here's the old adage. They haven't really played anybody. They beat Drew, they beat Morrisville State, they beat Massachusetts College, they beat NYU Poly, they beat Merchant Marine. That's not bad. They're a well-coached team, but still beat Yorkham, New York. They lost to Stevens, beat Immaculata, beat Clarkson, beat Kenyon. Have you heard anybody yet that jumps out at you? Beat Hunter. Yes, they beat Brandeis, but Brandeis is also 8-4 in the season. Guess what? NYU has Chicago and WashU this weekend. We'll really understand how good NYU is or isn't this weekend. Following that, by the way, they have Emory and Rochester. A couple good games coming up there for NYU. I'll be more interested to see if they're good then, because NYU has a habit of being really good looking in the offseason or in the out of conference schedule, and then looking horrific in the UAA schedule. So that's what I want to look out for. So honestly, to go with you there, D Train, I don't like the East region this year. I suspect there'll be a dark horse. I think there's Brockport State could impress. You never want to count out Hobart because Coach Neer is terrific. But nobody else jumps out at me. I know Vassar's off to a good start, but they're an untested school. I want to see how they do. 9-2. They, as Coach Dunn pointed out, they've had 9 total conference wins in the last 3 or some odd years. Let's see how they do as we progress on. They have the big game against Hobart coming up tomorrow night. Outside of that, and maybe Oswego State, but I almost wonder if they're a year early from where they really could be. But I hate to tell you, D-Train, East Region's not looking that strong this year. And I will say I don't know if there's a hosting situation there, especially considering the Mid-Atlantic is so deep with good teams this year. And the Northeast is always deep. East might not have any games on the men's side of things. Of course, that's the men's side. Hadn't looked at the women's side. DJ, I hope that answers your question. I know you're probably not thrilled with it. If you have any more questions, we've got a couple more minutes before we'll sign off here. At D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us via email, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or you can join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Lots of interesting things going on in the last couple of days in basketball. Certainly been pretty impressive. By the way, on a quick side note before I get into some more details, hearts go out to Elmhurst, who lost their beloved trainer, the short battle with leukemia. Hearts go out to WPI, who lost somebody in their system, in their athletics department, and I'm forgetting there was a third. Oh, don't remember who the third was. WPI's was a softball coach. Don't remember who the third was. I apologize, but there were some losses in Division III ranks recently. Our hearts go out to everybody there as well. By the way, this is also the time of year. Not only does weather affect teams, but illnesses affect teams. Something to keep an eye on. Some teams could be dealing with flus and stuff like that, and that can make a major effect here in mid-January as we get rolling into the rest of the conference schedule for everybody. Real quick look at the top 25. Stevens Point, can't imagine they're not going to be number one until somebody beats them. They are just plowing along. 23 of 25 first place votes. Wooster with 1, Cabrini with 1, sitting third. Illinois Wesleyan, WPI. All of these teams are proving themselves. Amherst, WashU. I don't have WashU as high as 7th. I'm not saying they're not a good team. I just don't have them that high. But the Bears are always a solid unit. Whitewater, Wittenberg taking a bad loss against DePaul. Wittenberg is sitting 9th right now. Bad loss to DePaul. How they play against Wooster will determine how far they fall. If they beat Wooster, imagine them staying right about that spot. You'll notice Illinois Wesleyan lost to Augustana and then came back and won. They only dropped a spot. Augustana, on the other hand, beat Illinois Wesleyan, then lost to Wheaton. They only lost a spot. So if Wittenberg beats Wooster, they'll stay about the same spot. If they lose to Wooster and it's close, they'll drop a few. If they lose a lot, they'll drop a lot. Williams is 10th. That loss to Amherst stung them a little bit. I think there's an example where I think the voters were a little too harsh. They went from 5th to 10th because they lost to Amherst. Granted, Amherst is sitting in 6th. I moved Williams down 3 spots just to put them behind Amherst, but they're 1 behind Amherst. St. Thomas playing well. St. Norbert, they're my dark horse in the Midwest. If they get the right lineup, they could get a deep run in the NCAA tournament. Augustana, interesting team. We'll see how they play out. Wesley, man, this is a team everybody's talking about right now. They continue to roll along. Messiah was undefeated, now have lost, but they're a solid unit. Then St. Mary's. That's 3 Mid-Atlantic teams, 14, 15, 16. Virginia Wesleyan, Bowdoin, hey, pretty good team in Bowdoin. They keep winning. Mary Washington, another Mid-Atlantic team. Wheaton of Illinois, Ohio Wesleyan, Albertus Magnus, Oglethorpe College, or Colorado College, rounding out your top 25 on the men's side. Really fascinating top 25 right now. On the women's side, DePaul, I mean, are they going to lose? The conference hasn't been a threat. I think if DePaul loses, it's because DePaul beat themselves. DePaul didn't get ready for something. I can't imagine they lose in the NCAA tournament until maybe the championship. And if the NCAA committee is really good, DePaul and WashU, while somewhat close to each other, stay away until at least the Final Four, if not the championship game. This WashU women's basketball team looks like the team of old. Not that they're not always good, but they look good. If DePaul WashU, in my book, would be an epic championship game if the committee could line it up just right. They have the ability to do it, to have teams come to DePaul from the east, have teams come to WashU from the west, and avoid those two teams meeting at least until the Final Four, if not the championship game. That would be awesome. Amherst sitting 3rd. I think that's out of respect for the school. If you talk to Coach G.P. Gramacki, he's probably not thinking they're 3rd. Whitman, there's a dark horse coming out of the West. Watch out for that squad. The missionaries are good. Hope continues to roll along. Thomas More continues to. Thomas More scored last 2 games have scored more than 100 points and just dismantled their opponents. Tufts is still undefeated. George Fox is undefeated. Emory undefeated. Women's basketball. The top of women's basketball, in my opinion, is deeper than it has been in a long time. Montclair State is playing well. FDU Florham is undefeated. Wheaton playing well. York won another one. They're undefeated. Carthage with 2 losses is a very good team. St. Thomas you can't count on. I'm at 15 at this point, and I think all of those 15 could have a legitimate run to at least the Elite 8 if the brackets work out for them. John Carroll is sneakily good. Whitewater, I don't know what to make of Whitewater. Saw them in Vegas, and they did not look good. Just looked inconsistent. They got to tighten things up if they want another deep run in the NCAA tournament. Remember, they were the defending national champs, or defending runner-ups, I should say. Williams, Oshkosh, Ferrum, Christopher Newport, Bowdoin, Stevens Point, Rhodes, Trinity, Texas, rounding out your top 25. The top of the women's basketball is good this year. Really good. I mean, consider DePaul, WashU, Amherst, Whitman, Hope, Thomas More, Tufts, George Fox, Emory, Montclair State, FDU, Florham, Wheaton, and York. Top 13 in the D3Hoops.com poll have a total of 3 losses. Oh, that's amazing. Love Division III basketball and women's basketball this year. I think, please tune into these games, at least the competitive ones. You're going to see some really good basketball this year, in my opinion, and I think it's well worth tuning in and catching them. We're going to wrap up the show here. Don't forget, we'll be back on the air Sunday night. On Sunday, we will talk primarily Northeast Central, as we're going to start calling it more often instead of Midwest, since the men's name will be officially turned to Central next year. Atlantic and South regions will also have our coaches' corner. Plenty to talk about with those regions, to be sure. Also, don't forget, 2 weeks from today, we will be on the air from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. I hope to gosh we don't have any overtime on that show. It is a show, is part of our campaign. to fundraise for the show and improve it. You'll notice choppy video. We haven't had the best of technology years. We did change providers to YouTube recently to try and smooth things out and improve things for you. I'm hoping that you'll get a chance to consider contributing. We'll send out a link here right after the show. Also, if you can't contribute, at least share it, retweet it, email it, send it on Facebook, whatever you can, so that others may be interested can contribute. There are perks along the way. If you donate $10 and choose to have the perk, we will put you on our contributor page as a thank you. If you choose to contribute at least $25 and choose the perk, we will not only put you on the contributor page online, but we'll also publicly thank you here on Hoopsville. We have a list of thank yous that we will get to maybe next show. If you go with the $100 or $50 one, $50 will get you those 2 thank yous. Plus, we will send you a Hoopsville t-shirt. That will happen by the end of the basketball season. $100 level, you get all of that, the 2 thank yous plus the t-shirt. I should mention we'll also follow you on Twitter if you so choose. If you choose to donate $100 and choose the perk, all of those items plus we will wear your school's shirt on air and interview a guest of your choosing. I say men's and women's coaches on the thing, but some people have chosen others who are good choices. We will have them on a future show. And if you are so inclined and donate $250 to us down the road and choose the perk, you get all of that, plus you get to appear on the show with us to talk about your favorite team and as well talk about your passion and why you love Division III basketball. Please consider it. Please pass it on to others that you may know who may be interested, or at least pass it around your network. The more people who know about it, the better we do. We are a tick under 20% raised so far. The goal, by the way, is not something that we get held to. The goal is twofold. One, it's a nice number to aim for. We hope we can get it. We think it's achievable. Second, if we hit our goal, the fees at the website Indiegogo that we are using for the fundraising get cut in more than half. There's a fee for using their resources, which is certainly understandable. But we will actually, those fees are at X number. If we are to hit our goal, they are at Y, so we get to keep more of the money. You can use credit card or PayPal to make your contribution. I really hope you'll consider doing so. We want to send this show around. You'll also understand on our blog, or read on our blog and on our Indiegogo page, really the reason we want to use this money and how to use it and why we're finally coming to you. The long and the short of it is, I have been told by many a person that we should have been asking for help far sooner to continue this show and improve it. I thought it was a nice sentiment. Thank you very much. Not going to ask for help. Feels kind of weird. Clearly, we need to ask for help to improve the show, to improve the experience for yourselves, and we have found that clearly asking for help was not a bad decision, that many people have wanted to watch this show and contribute and help, and so I thank you all for doing so. We're going to sign off for now. Sunday night, we're back on the air, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, again, covering Northeast, Central, Atlantic, and South regions primarily, and, of course, Coach's Corner. If you have somebody you think we should talk to, please email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com or tweet us at d3hoopsville and using the hashtag Hoopsville. Also, if you have a school of the week that you think deserves to be noticed and have a little trivia fun, that's our Thursday shows. Please email us or tweet us as well. Thank you for tuning in to Hoopsville tonight. I certainly appreciate you taking the time to do so. We'll sign off for the night. I want to thank, as I go out on the contributor's point of view, I want to thank D3Hoops.com and, of course, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. They are very kind in trying to contribute for us. We certainly appreciate it. They've given us a little bit of money this year as well that we are hoping to use momentarily on a brand new computer so we can solve these problems that you may be experiencing with our stream. Nonetheless, thank you to them. Thank you to you for tuning in. We'll be back with more Hoopsville coming up on Sunday night. In the meantime, you're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Thank you, and we'll see you on Sunday night.